Can a $69 digital wind instrument off Amazon actually be a viable alternative to the digital saxes of Roland and Yamaha? Call me crazy, but I've got a hunch it can be. In this box is the Vangoa S55 iwi. Never heard of it? Me neither. This is just one of many affordable electronic wind instruments that's been sweeping Amazon in recent times. Now, if you're wondering why I would even think that this could be a viable alternative, well, that kind of leads me to my second hunch, and that is that most people have no idea what a digital saxophone actually is, how it works, or even what we as sax players can really expect of one. So join me as we discover not only what's behind this box, but what's really behind a digital saxophone. Now, as sax players, when we think of the perfect digital saxophone, I know many of us dream of a regular acoustic saxophone with a volume knob, Bluetooth, and a headphone jack. Just think how amazing it would be to be able to play our saxes with full force at a whisper quiet volume, with all of the feedback and the sensitivity of a real acoustic saxophone. The possibilities, even just for practice alone, are mind-blowing. But that's not what this, or indeed any other digital sax on the market today, actually is, despite the efforts of some manufacturers to make it appear so. In truth, these are actually, as previously mentioned, electronic wind instruments, or to be more precise, MIDI wind controllers. You see, if you're my age or older, regardless of your prior experience as a musician, you may have actually had some run-ins with MIDI before. Back in the feature phone days, MIDI ringtones were insanely popular. You know, those cheesy ringtones that sounded like they were played on a Casio keyboard. But the truth is that MIDI is and has always been capable of so much more. You see, MIDI is a signal that transmits basic musical data. Which pitch was played, how long was it played, and how hard was it hit. Those simple inputs are captured by a MIDI controller like a keyboard or a wind instrument, and then used to drive sounds from a sound module. And it's there that the real magic actually happens. You see, the main reason why those MIDI ringtones on those early feature phones sounded so bad is because those phones had neither the memory nor the speaker quality to support a high quality sound module. Fast forward to today, and MIDI is routinely used to mock up huge, sweeping film scores. But here's the rub. You see, over the years, I've purchased and used expensive orchestra packs. I've written music for podcasts and video games and short films, but I've never ever found a sound module capable of accurately replicating a saxophone. It's why even on top of the range products by major manufacturers, their digital saxophones still sound like this. Don't expect any digital sax on the market, no matter how expensive, to have a digital saxophone sound that could actually match an acoustic saxophone. So now that we've set some expectations early on and learned why these instruments might be sitting on a more even playing field than you might have expected, let's dive in and see what's inside the box. Well, it's a simple lightweight box. Inside, this is what we've got. We've got a little instruction manual there. We've got the digital wind instrument here. I thought maybe this colorful strip down here might actually be a light, but it looks just like a sticker. I'm not sure if that lights up or not. So something that stands out to me straight away is that these keys are actually not really keys in the traditional sense. They're just like touch sensitive little pads. So they're not like a clicky button. They've got no tactile feedback, which I understand might be quite off-putting for a lot of people, but I actually think that might be a benefit. I might be wrong. A couple other things I've noticed on the front here looks like a little speaker. And then on the back, we've got the only clicky buttons that I can see on this instrument to control the volume and to control some of the other parameters. And then we also have some other clicky buttons for the octave controls. On the bottom of the instrument, I can see a headphone jack and a USB-C port for charging. We can also use to connect to a computer so that we can use external sounds as well. The mouthpiece on this instrument is very basic. It's just sort of like a rectangular shape. As a pro saxophone player, this doesn't really bother me at all. So we've got a few other things in the box. We've got a little soft case, little bag for the saxophone, the digital saxophone. We've also got a USB-C charge cable and a USB-C wall outlet. A lot of tech companies don't give these little wall outlets anymore, so that's nice, but it is a US outlet and I'm in Australia, so that's not going to work here. Nice that they included it anyway. We've also got a set of headphones. These just look like basic black AirPods shaped headphones. They're wired and they will go in the 3.5mm jack. So I think a great test of any piece of technology is how easily someone can operate it without even peering at the manual. So I'm going to just try and get this thing going. Hopefully it's got a little bit of battery power and we'll see if I can make a noise. Okay, I have thoughts. It's been about 2 weeks since what you just watched, and I realized I made some big mistakes. You see, if I had simply read the manual from the start, I would have known that I actually needed to calibrate this instrument before playing it, which literally takes 2 seconds, and while I was at it, I should have changed the fingering from flute to sax. As soon as I did those things, the instrument suddenly made a lot more sense. But believe it or not, the biggest mistake I made was actually to do with mindset. You see, I approached this instrument like it was a saxophone, assuming that just because I'm a pro sax player myself, I could just pick it up and immediately make it sound good. But what I failed to recognize is that, putting aside this colorful sticker and the low price tag, this is a unique instrument in its own right, with its own technique that would actually take a bit of time to learn. For instance, I needed to get used to rolling my thumb up for the upper octave key and rolling it down for the lower octave key. And I would actually need to practice some scales and exercises over those breaks. I also realized I needed to be quite precise with where I placed my fingers to ensure the keys or the pads would accurately register my inputs. In fact, it reminds me a lot of a clarinet in that way. And I also had to learn how to make do without the palm keys and the pinky stacks of a traditional sax and learn a couple of alternate fingerings instead. Now, make no mistake, there is a limit to what you can actually do with this thing because the ergonomics are basic to say the least. But just practicing it for 10 or 15 minutes a day for the past couple of weeks has taught me that you can do more with it than you probably think. Now, before you hear me truly put this little instrument through its paces, let's take a moment to listen to all of the inbuilt sounds through the inbuilt speaker. As you can tell, most of the inbuilt sounds are pretty basic, and interestingly, there are no synthesizer sounds. Every sound is based off a real instrument. But where I think this little iwi truly comes into its own is when you use it as a MIDI controller, paired with a DAW like GarageBand or Logic. When used as a MIDI controller, you can make this little thing sound like whatever you want, and depending on your sound libraries, you can suddenly have access to hundreds or even thousands more sounds. You can use a USB Type-C cable to to connect this instrument to your computer, or you can just use the built-in Bluetooth. Just be aware that utilizing Bluetooth does appear to create a bit more latency in the connection, but it is still usable, and you can even pair it with the GarageBand iPhone app to directly record to your phone and explore some of its inbuilt sounds. Just listen to this atmospheric string patch in GarageBand and how we can use the little breath sensor to really shape the dynamics. For such a cheap instrument, this breath sensor is actually fantastic, and you can even change the level of resistance to suit your playing preference. Surprisingly, I've found it very responsive throughout the entire dynamic range. If I was still composing soundtracks, I would definitely want this little MIDI controller. So now for the moment you've been waiting for. Let's see if we can push this to its limits. Now, before I give you my final verdict on this instrument, I want to make a note about using this as a practice saxophone. Namely, don't. The inline keys are very basic and have more in common with a recorder than a saxophone, but more importantly, the mouthpiece is only a breath sensor. It's not designed to register any embouchure changes. Now make no mistake, this is not a criticism. As I said at the top of this video, no digital sax today can truly replicate an acoustic saxophone, not in sound and not in feel. Even Emio, creators of a remarkable digital sax that comes with real keywork, springs, pads and all, have stopped shipping their instruments with accurately shaped sax mouthpieces, in part because they don't want to mislead their customers, particularly beginners. Just to hammer it home one more time, just remember no digital sax today is designed to register all of our embouchure and throat changes. It would be really easy to fall into bad habits playing a digital sax, thinking that you've mastered your embouchure, only to be given a rude shock when it comes time to actually play a real sax. Speaking of, if you're a newcomer to the saxophone, make sure to check out lesson 1 of the SaxTuition beginner series. It'll teach you everything you need to know about getting started, including playing your first few notes and songs. I'll leave a link up here, and if you want to continue your sax journey with me, check out the full beginner series course over at saxtuition.com. It's already helped thousands of sax players learn the instrument from scratch, get a great sound, read sheet music, and unlock the songs they want to play. So be sure to check it all out, and hopefully I'll see you inside. Now, at the top of this video, I made a huge statement that this little iwi could potentially compete with the likes of Yamaha and Roland. So was I right? Well, yeah. Sort of. From a technical perspective, this does practically everything those instruments do. It measures your breath velocity, it combines it with your finger inputs, and it outputs a MIDI signal, which you can shape into practically anything you want. It has an impressive list of features, including Bluetooth, USB-C, headphone jack, built-in speaker, rechargeable battery, and adjustable breath resistance. So far, so good. In fact, the only thing that really lets this instrument down is the keywork. Yes, it's responsive, and yes, it works exactly as intended. But there's a reason why real saxophones have palm keys, pinky stacks, and offset keys. It's to give us, the player, total command over our performance. Even though I feel so much more confident playing this saxophone now than I did 2 weeks ago, I do get the sense that I've pushed this little instrument to its boundaries. And for that reason, I couldn't ever really see myself playing one on a live gig. But Let's not forget one more little fact. This little Vangoa S55 is a fraction of the price of even the most entry-level Roland equivalent, which only uses a basic recorder-style keywork too. So if you're a composer looking to breathe new life into your MIDI orchestrations, or you're a sax player who's brand new to the world of MIDI and looking for the perfect low-cost introduction, you really can't go wrong with this little Vangoa S55. Special thanks to Vangoa for sending me this instrument for this review, and just as a reminder, all of my reviews are completely unbiased. These are entirely my own thoughts and they did not get a say on the final edit. If you want to pick up one of these instruments for yourself, you can use my link in the description below to get a 5% discount. Now, perhaps you're here because you live in an apartment or with family and you want to know what to practice on sax when you can't make any noise. Well, this video will be a must watch for you, so go ahead and check it out. Thanks for watching, guys. Make sure to subscribe if you've enjoyed this video, and I'll see you all again soon.